Hey, before we get into today's episode, if you're a podcast host or guest, listen up. I've produced over 200 podcast episodes and guested on 50 podcasts just in 2025 alone. And let me tell you, nothing grows your audience or builds trust faster than being in front of the right listeners. That's why I created my podcast tour offer. I'll help you map out your topics, strategize your message, and find you the most aligned podcasts and audiences to get you and your business in front of. So if you've ever thought, I just wish more eyes were on my work, this is your sign. Let's get you on a podcast tour. You can find all the details in the show notes. Just look for podcast tour. Now let's dive into today's episode. Well, I am so excited for today's guest, Sydney O'Brien. She is a pro at helping women entrepreneurs ditch the cookie cutter marketing and actually connect with their dream clients. She's a mom of 3, like me, host of the Mompreneur Mastery Podcast, and the founder of Content That Converts. Basically, she knows her stuff, and I can't wait for you to hear her wisdom. Welcome to the show, Sydney.
Thank you so much for having me.
Start with giving us that snapshot of how you became an entrepreneur, because everybody's story into entrepreneurship is always so different.
It's a weird one. I'm not going to lie to you. So it was right after restrictions were lifted after COVID, and my husband got deployed with very little notice. So he was gone for 6 months, and I was going a little bit crazy. And my kids were 6 months, a little over a year, and like 3 years old. And so obviously that was the best time to start a business, just to have something else to focus on. Like, what else? Yeah. My sister had started a coaching business, and I was like, hey, I'll totally do your social media management just to have a hobby or something to do. And then it just kind of turned into a full-fledged business.
Oh my gosh, super cool. Yeah, our kids must be similar in age, at least in how far apart they are. That is a wild time to be alive. So I have lived that. So if we just dive right in, for entrepreneurs who feel like they're doing all the things, they're not seeing sales, where do they start with their messaging?
You got to talk to people. I know it's hard. It can feel uncomfortable, but kind of also sucks to spend so much time on different parts of your marketing and not have it lead anywhere. So the first thing you got to do is talk to your audience, either current members, current clients, past clients, people who signed up for your lead magnets. Ask them questions about what problems they're having, how they feel about those problems. The more specific you can get with the questions you ask, you can get really vivid answers. You can use those same exact words in your messaging, in your content, so that it really resonates with your audience, and not only will help you attract the right people, but then when you're in that connection building, trust building stage before you sell something, they're going to be so much more interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, finding what they're saying, not to put you on the spot, but do you have a generic example of a question to just get people's minds thinking about what those could be?
What most people do, and this isn't a dig, it's like everyone does it because we are, as business owners, we're doing all the things all the time. And some stuff you don't know any better, is you ask about their problems. And then when you're in your content, you talk about these very broad pain points. Oh, like someone's busy, they're tired. But what you really want to dig into is the feelings they have about that, not just tired or busy, but like what's happening because they have that problem. Are they so tired they're like struggling to stay awake driving their kids to school? Are they so tired that they, reheat their coffee 3 times and leave it in the microwave and forget it exists? Those very specific situations are the things you want to dig out of people when you have these conversations.
Okay. And with that, then why do so many people feel like the content is just not resonating with them right now?
Well, it could be like a lot of things, honestly. But right now, I think a lot of the content we're seeing online is either AI generated, which AI doesn't know enough to be able to create that content that really resonates, or we kind of fall back on just hopping on endless trends and real trends, like using those same hooks that everyone else is using, which is really fun. I won't lie to you. A lot of fun, and it's a good way to get engagement and visibility. But when you go deeper into the buyer journey and you're trying to build that trust and connection so you can get clients, you have to have deeper messaging in your content than you can get from those trending reels and things.
Yeah, they are fun, and I do like to use them sparingly, but you're right. You have to let your personality and vibe shine too. And it's sometimes hard to do that with some of those. Mm-hmm. So in that same ballpark, then how do we make sure that content that we're creating, it's not just a scroll past type of thing? How do we make sure it sticks? How do we turn that into sticking with the right people?
So if we're talking about social media in general, it all comes down to a hook. And I know I just said like the trending hooks and like reels and things aren't great. They can be great if you get very specific in the words you use. And we are seeing one trend that I do like, not like a real trend or anything, but just this general online marketing trend. We are getting very specific and person first in content. So a couple of years ago, like I could have shared a carousel that was like 3 ways to get more followers on Instagram. And then if I were to share that now, knowing we want to be more specific and we are going into more person first content as we're kind of overwhelmed with generic AI stuff, I would say the top 3 ways my clients gained however many followers overnight from an Instagram strategist. So there's a lot of social proof in there. There's specificity and it's human first.
Makes sense. And other than just like flipping tips and things, are there other types of trends or examples that you've seen that really work or are a good flip like that is?
Case studies are always a great thing, storytelling content.
Sure.
But again, you kind of have to start it with some kind of hook, not even just like tips, but a transformation or starting with that really specific situation that I outlined about like the coffee example, how tired your audience is, if that's one of their pain points, that kind of stuff.
Okay. And so then you mentioned that change over time of how we're consuming our content, how we like to see it presented. With that, I know you have an expertise in just that decision-making and buying process and how that's also shifted. Talk a little bit about that and what that means for us in the market, being content creators, being service providers.
Sure. We're seeing this shift in buyer behavior where people are a little bit more skeptical and they need more trust, more touch points before they're ready to invest. It makes sense. Lots of people have been burned before with online marketing, not marketing specifically, online marketing tactics that don't lead to the results they were promised or offers that don't quite get us there. And also with the economy, people are just buying differently. So it's to be expected. But I think it's a really good opportunity for us as service providers is to really dig into what our audience needs, dig into that messaging, and then share all the social proof you can, honestly. And because it's so easy with AI now to generate like fake testimonials and things or like fake screenshots, I always recommend, if you can, tagging the person who gave you the testimonial. It just builds so much instant trust and proof when you're trying to sell something. But also expect to have a longer like launch period. To do like 5-day open cart windows, I now do like several weeks. It's not like I'm selling like multiple times every day, which if that's what you do, go for it. This just doesn't work for me personally, but I find that's much more beneficial to me to get sales is to spread it out a little bit more.
I've noticed that too in it taking longer maybe for people to make a decision. I wonder if it's that trust piece, because I don't know that I've met someone who doesn't have a story about being burned or signing up for something that they didn't get what they thought they were paying for. And then there's really nothing you can do. It's kind of just a loss and it might taint us.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say is the difference then between talking about pain points and then saying something that actually connects with your audience?
I mean, being specific and vivid, and it kind of goes back into storytelling as well. It doesn't have to be this huge transformation piece, but if in your content you can very clearly outline any kind of situation or experience or feelings people are having, not even like the specific feelings about the pain point, but the secondary things, what's happening because you have this pain point that makes it even harder. Are you wasting time on things? Are you losing money that you really needed? Those kind of secondary things, and storytelling in that sense, using your content to do that. A lot of the time, it's easier to do in more long form content like a podcast episode or an email than it is in social media because it's very quick and you lose people's attention pretty easily. But anytime you can do that is very helpful.
So being that you touched on that, what platforms do you like to use or a combination of them to get your message across?
I I have my own podcast and I like Threads, but I'm not super active there. I'm more like lurk than post on Threads. And then Instagram. Instagram I use mostly for like engagement nurturing. And then my podcast and then podcast guesting for visibility and nurturing and like educating and that as well. And then email is mostly for nurturing and selling.
Perfect.
So having this cohesive plan across all platforms is also very helpful.
And how do you stay away from feeling burnt out, like you're recreating things for each one? Is it a lot of repurposing? I know I do that a lot, but I also don't like to use the same exact text over on every platform because it seems like we need to tweak it a little. Do you have advice for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do repurpose a lot, but I am the same way. I don't want to just copy and paste things into new platforms. It doesn't hit the same. Mm-hmm. So if I have an email, I will take like one main point of it or even one little point and make it much more punchy so it grabs attention for Instagram instead of this long drawn out email. And shorten it, condense it as much as I can, and then usually lead them somewhere else to the long form content or to my lead magnet or even just to start a conversation. But there's definitely some tweaking that has to be done.
And going back to that storytelling piece a little bit, for someone that is either new or let's say they've pivoted, maybe they feel like they haven't had clients or enough clients for that social proof that you're mentioning and to be able to tell a story, do they rely on their own story? Where do you suggest they start with that if they feel like they're maybe starting from?
I would absolutely start with your own story. So many of us are our own ideal client, even just like a little bit farther ahead than where our ideal clients are. But that alone can build a lot of connection and trust, being like, hey, I've been where you are. I completely understand it. If you frame it in this very validating, like empowering way, it gets you trust, it gets you connection, it can get you engagement and followers that then can go on to become clients.
And with that buyer's journey and that shift in kind of needing a longer sales window, is there anything else you've shifted or you recommend when someone's setting up a new offer, setting up a system like that you would recommend so much time for your content or emails and things like that to adjust because of those things?
This is something I've been playing around with myself, but it's going to vary from business to business just because every audience is different. I've switched my membership a little bit, so I'm promoting that right now because I transitioned from Instagram only to general marketing strategy. And it's been a long time. There was a couple of weeks of educating and then nurturing, and I am now in the launch or the promotion window, and it's like 3 weeks long. So it's just much more spread out, but I have been able to get lots of engagement and everything. So it seems to be working very well.
Giving it more time in general. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there something that we haven't touched on yet that you want to focus more on or touch on?
Once you have your messaging down, the importance of having a plan that follows the buyer's journey is going to make a world of difference. One, because you know what you're posting. You're not scrambling last minute, which is the worst and is a huge time suck. And two, it's this very nice way to guide people to the next step. So it doesn't feel like, I don't know, lots of people worry about being pushy when they're selling. But once you have that buyer's journey in place, it doesn't feel pushy. It's like, this is the natural next step. You can join me or not. That's totally fine. You can stick around and not buy too. But it's just a much more gradual, natural way without the harsh sales pitches.
And do you help people with making that plan?
Yeah, we start with a strategy for visibility because obviously you need people to see what you're posting and it needs to be the right people. And I know we talked about that when you were on my podcast, actually. And a great way to do that is podcast guesting. If you can be strategic in the podcast you guest on. And then it's starting the conversations, getting engagement, whether it's on Instagram or it replies to your emails. And then I will help people come up with content that fosters connection. You see the similarities, you start to build that trust, like, hey, I'm the person to help you with these problems. I know I understand these problems. And then comes the trust stage, which is giving the social proof, doing those case studies, the testimonials, the screenshots of whatever wins. And then from there is when you start selling or inviting them to whatever offer it is that you're selling.
It seems so simple when it's laid out like that instead of just being this huge thing in our head and weighing us down. I was thinking of a question when we were talking. This is random, but this is where my brain is going. Is educational content dead? And if you feel like you're stuck in that educational giving tips, how can you shift out of that? And also, why isn't it such a thing anymore?
Yeah, it's just one of those things that has been overdone a ton. So we're a little bit over it. I do still share some educational content, but you kind of got to dig a little deeper. And when I do it, I do not only like the 3 tips to get whatever result, but it's usually like a reframe or a mindset shift involved. So instead of doing like a 3 tips to get more followers, I might say, oh, you think you need to go viral to get followers, but here's what you actually need, and educate in that way, and calling out these very common myths or beliefs that just aren't quite true and showing them the better way. This is also really helpful if you can frame it in a way that shows off your unique selling proposition. So if I do that, my audience is mostly moms or really busy women entrepreneurs. So if I can work in the mom life aspect or some like time aspect in there, it also builds trust and connection while educating.
Okay, and that makes me think about niching down with your content that converts. How important is that to get that specific? I know that sometimes people's fear that, well, if I talk directly to one person, then I'm going to miss other people. Can you speak to that?
I always do recommend niching down, because if you're talking to too many people, you're just talking to no one. Because the more specific you can be, the better it is. If you think about, there's like 3 billion active Instagram accounts on there every month. You are one of those 3 billion. And you're all kind of competing. So the more specific you can be, the more likely you are to reach the right people. If you have an audience, but it's not the right people, they're not going to follow the rest of that buyer journey to eventually buy from you. And then it ends up just being a waste of your time and effort and energy when it comes to marketing. So when you do niche down, you get better results, which is always nice. You can get more specific. So you use the keywords that people are searching for. So you can use the words that people will resonate with to actually sign the clients.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about your free buyer journey content map that you have for us.
Yeah, it goes over 2 weeks. It shows you how you can have a multi-platform marketing plan that follows those 5 steps to sales that I outlined, the whole buyer journey, using a long form content like podcast or a blog and email and social media, and how they can all work together to get you clients, basically.
Okay. I like that. I'll put that in the show notes. And then any final thoughts for you?
I know it might sound really confusing, all the things I just said. It might be a little overwhelming, but I promise it's a lot easier than it sounds once you're in it. So please don't feel overwhelmed. You can start mapping out a plan, even just a couple days at a time. And I promise you, it will make a world of difference.
Yes, that is so important. Once you start taking little baby steps, you'll see the end. It won't be so scary. And where can we connect with you outside of here?
Sure. You can listen to my podcast, which is called Mompreneur Mastery. You can connect with me on Instagram and Threads. I am at SydneyO'Brien.
Awesome. Perfect. That will all be in the show notes. And I just thank you for your time. This was fast and furious, but it was packed full of so many things that people can take and run with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, before you go, if you've ever wished podcast guesting or hosting felt a little easier, you're going to love this. I started a free podcast matchmaking community where hosts and guests can actually connect, swap shows, and find aligned conversations without all the cold pitching and chaos. It's totally free, it's super fun, and it's growing every day. So whether you're looking to grow your audience, get in front of the right people, or just finally get your message out there, come join us. You can find the link in the show notes to join the community.